Hey everyone, welcome back. So we are going to continue our series of designing creatures with primitive shapes. So I've touched on spheres and I've touched on cubes. So today we are going to show or build a creature based on a cylinder. Now first, I must teach you how to build a cylinder. So if you've done foundation studies before, if you've practiced this, bear with me. If you have not, try to get a sketchbook, get your pen, get your pencil, and follow along with me. We're going to do this vertically. Now we can lean a cylinder any which way we deem fit, okay? But to keep things simple and to keep things moving along quickly, we're just going to do it vertically, okay? Now, I'm going to tilt my sketchbook just a little bit so I can get a comfortable ellipse. But essentially, you want to take your pinky, all right, and you're going to have that be the guide for your hand running across the paper. Now, those of you that are familiar with using your shoulder when you sketch, it's very important to do so because you do not want to use your wrist only and you don't want to use your elbow only. What you'll get banana shapes, you'll get kidney shapes, and basically what you hope to be straight lines will actually end up bowing. Okay, so if you use your shoulder like this and just lay the ellipse down horizontally on the page. This is very lightly done, all right, and it's if you turn it like this, the ellipse is going to be laying horizontally. Okay, now this is very important. You have to build a good foundation for your drawings before you actually start drawing intricate details and adding forms to it. Okay, so a cylinder is not as difficult as a cube because there's really only three shapes that you have to worry about. The top ellipse, the bottom ellipse, and then the walls of the cylinder itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to establish the center of that ellipse. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to look at that ellipse and cut it in half. Okay, you're going to do a vertical line. And then I'm going to turn it so I can draw comfortably like this, and then I'm just going to cut the ellipse in half horizontally like this. So essentially what you get when you turn your sketchbook back vertically, you're going to get a plus sign. Okay, you're going to get a nice ellipse drawn, and you're going to get a plus sign. Now notice that all of these lines are going over top of each other without being perfect. So I'm giving everybody watching this permission to not be perfect with these lines. What you do need to do is draw lightly, because when you draw over top of your previous line, you want to make sure that it is light enough so that when they start to stack against each other, it forms a nice grouped lines. Okay, I don't know if that was correct English, but anyway, I hope you get the gist. Okay, so now once this is established, you can do two things. You can either go to the center of this ellipse and just draw a vertical line straight down, or you can go to the edges and you can do it this way. What I like doing the very center of the ellipse. Okay, so I'm holding my hand like this. So notice how the tip of the pencil in the back, there's barely any real estate left, but there's a lot on this. So I'm going to keep things light and I'm going to move my hand off of the page. Okay, so I'll move it down so you can see it. Now what I'm doing is I'm making sure I'm using my shoulder, and I'm going to go vertically. This is going to be very, very light. Probably so light that you might not be able to see it on screen. But it is there, so you'll be able to see it. Now I'll push it up a little bit so you can see. Okay, so I have it focused so it's only on this spot. Okay, so if it was a little blurry, it's not auto-focusing. Okay, so once we have that, the reason I like doing that is because I'll go to the edges of my ellipse. Okay, and what I like doing is I like looking at that horizontal line that I cut the ellipse in half with. And wherever it's stopping on the edge of each side of that ellipse, I like to put just a little dot. That helps me. Some people like to put dots, some don't. I'll put one in the center. It just, like, one, selfishly, it just looks cool. But two, it's like a good indicator. Like, hey, this is where I intentionally meant to start my new lines. So now I have this as a guideline, that center line that is cutting the cylinder in half. Once I have that, I'm going to go over to this side. You can start on this side if you want. I guess if you're right or left-handed, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to go on this side, and I'm going to make sure that this vertical line going down is parallel with my center line. Okay, this is where I'm really going to not harp on you, but this is where I'm going to reiterate how important it is to make sure the foundation of this cylinder is built correctly. Because later on, when we form a creature off of it, the perspective has to be correct. This is why cubes are so difficult. If you followed along in my last tutorial, my last video that will be linked at the end of this one, you'll see that it is it's difficult. Okay, now I'm going to go to the right side. And I'm going to make sure, now you can't see me off camera, but what I'm going to do is I'm looking over my sketchbook. I've mentioned this in my other videos where if you look directly over your sketchbook, you can see the perspective for what it is. Now, a lot of times when we as human beings draw, and especially write, we put the sketchbook on our desk, and what do? We start to lean our head to the side and add detail and all that, and it skews our perspective, which is why 90% of everybody's perspective is screwed up. Okay, you have to look at it direct. This is why it's so easy to see perspective issues when you view images on the computer screen. Why is that? Because you're looking directly at it. Okay, so you have to imagine that. Now, if you're standing up, or no, if you're sitting down and you're drawing, just make sure that you have good posture and you're sitting up. Okay, now, the cool thing about this method is that it doesn't matter how far down the sides go or the center goes. The reason is because we're going to add an ellipse wherever we deem fit inside there. It doesn't matter. These just need to travel down long enough or far enough so that I can comfortably put an ellipse in there wherever I want. Okay, you don't want to come up too short unless you specifically know that you are sketching a short cylinder. All right. Now, let's put that second ellipse in there. Okay, I'm going to turn this sideways again. I'm going to look over my sketchbook. The reason I'm turning it sideways is because I'm right-handed, so I'm just tilting it this way so I can see it. And now I'm going to put an ellipse in there. Okay, the secret to this ellipse is that the bottom ellipse in a cylinder is always slightly open more than that top one. Why is that? It's because perspective. When you have stacked ellipses moving up towards a horizon line or our eyesight or our eye line, because you have to imagine if you are looking at a soup can or a pop can, soda, you're looking at it from the top down view. But if you see a tube or a pop can that's far enough up, it's going to become at eye level and you won't be able to see the ellipses inside. So each stacked ellipse gets skinnier. If I were to go past this top ellipse that I drew, it's going to be skinnier. And then one above that is going to be even skinnier. Okay, now I can start to darken this a little more because I comfortably put the ellipse where I want it. But I'm still keeping it a little light. Now, here's the other key that I want to show you. Now that I have a shape that I do want, I'm going to darken it slightly, just slightly, right here on the side, and then over here on the side. But we're not done yet. What we need to do now is we need to successfully connect the sides of the cylinder, those lines that we drew, to that ellipse. We can't just draw the line straight up and stop, because the sides of a can or a cylinder does not stop at a point when it hits the ellipse. It actually wraps around. You see a little rolling effect. I'm just putting a little bit of a rolling effect in there. But I want to also keep things light in here because I am going to turn this into a creature. We are going to turn it into a creature. Okay, so if you've been following along with me so far, fantastic. If you're confused and you want to throw the sketchbook and a pencil at the table or the wall, fine. Just go grab a bite to eat, come back, watch my video again, and then we can start over. Okay, so now that we have this, let's see what we can turn this into. Now, when we think of a vertical creature, anything goes. Okay, most of the times we want to draw dragons and spiders and weird things. We're going to draw something really weird, all right? Now, the cylinder itself it doesn't have to be the shape of the creature. We're just using this as reference. My first tutorial when it comes to the basic shapes was with a sphere. Now spheres are easier because it's rounded, so that's basically the silhouette of the creature. Most animals that we know aren't walking around with a flat top, a flat bottom, and a cylindrical side. I mean, yeah, maybe plankton and amoeba and weird viruses, but other than that, wiener dog maybe? I don't know. Yeah, probably a wiener dog. But anyway, we're going to start doing that. Okay, just to show you so you guys can see this head on, I'm going to turn the sketchbook this way. So now you can see the power of doing a cylinder very lightly, because there's a lot of things that I can add inside the cylinder with the actual shape being lightly drawn. Okay, so let's start looking at this body real quick. I think I want to draw something maybe a little worm-like. I think that would be kind of cool. I'm going to use the side of this and maybe have, you know, and here's the cool thing. As you guys are watching this with me, I really had no idea what I was going to put in here. But as I just put that mark in, I thought, you know what would be cool? There's always those weird sci-fi movies and horror movies where you see creatures and strange things inside of a bottle with formaldehyde. So I'm thinking, what if there was something like that in there? Okay, maybe like a worm creature that is twisting around. I don't know if I actually want to draw the actual formaldehyde bottle. I mean, I could, because I already have the cylinder in there, but I don't know if that would be a good idea, because this is so far pushed over. Maybe I could just put the bottle around it. I don't know. We'll see. That's the other thing. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's where the fun part comes in. Okay, so you can see how loose I'm keeping my lines. I don't need to do anything fancy. Everything is established for me. I have the boundary that I can't go past. I have the shape that I need to keep most everything. And 3, we as artists tend to work a little better when we're coming up with something on the fly, but we also have rules. Okay, so this is why the better the brief that you get from a client, the easier time you're going to have at coming up with something that everybody's going to like on the team, most of the time. If you're just so insane about the stuff that you draw, then they're just hiring you specifically for your style, and they have no idea what's going to happen either. So it happens. All right. Ooh, wouldn't that be crazy if we just have this weird, like, hook right there? Comment below if you've seen the movie. Oh wait, I just had it in my mind. Splice. Yes. It's an older movie, kind of. It went under the radar. It flew under the radar. It had Adrian Brody in it. It was pretty good. It was a little weird, but Splice was good. Splice and DNA. They made a creature that. Well, I don't want to say anything, but it was strange. Okay. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Look at this twisty motion. Okay, so there's probably going to be some kind of a weird joint right there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some bulky shapes in here just in case I want to put some tendons or muscle under there later. All right, so now we have that. Very, very weird. I am actually having second thoughts about keeping the cylinder as a bottle anyway. I might just have appendages come out. That way we can have something truly strange and otherworldly. For example, what if we put some appendages coming out here, and they're almost like legs, and they are legs. Okay, like little spider legs. Ooh, that's gross. We're going to put a little bit of chaos in with these. So what that means is, those of you that are brand new to my channel, you haven't seen my stuff before. I always like to mention other artists that I've worked with and all that. I have a very good friend named Dave. His name's Dave Melvin, and I'll never forget what he told me. He said that if you add a little bit of chaos to your designs, especially your creatures and your characters, it goes a long way into making things unpredictable. Okay, so I'm keeping things loose. I think the style for today's drawing is just going to be rather loose. Now I've been putting a lot of detail into the other ones, but let's just have fun today. Not that the other days aren't fun, but fun as in gestural sketching, things of that nature. Okay, so now that I have that strange shoulder, I think what I'm going to do is indicate a hump over there and then maybe have some weird claws or hooks come out of there. Okay. If you've seen some really good movies or some good short films, or you read some books, comment below, because I would love to know what they are. See if they can give me any ideas, maybe something that I can draw in a future episode. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I do have a lot of stuff planned as far as the creature tutorials go for well-known beasts like the Xenomorph, the Predator. I drew Predator, but that was last year. I'm going to be doing it again. Warhammer universe, all that stuff. Just love it. Okay. I don't know what that is. I assume it's a fin, so maybe the head is down here. I don't know. Okay. So now that that's down there, wouldn't it be cool if we added a second tail, maybe coming up here? So look what's evolving just from a simple cylinder. I mean, again, like, we as concept artists, yeah, we operate better with the more information given to us, but at the same time, you're supposed to be an idea factory, so you can come up with as many ideas as possible with as little information given to you as possible. It's difficult, but it's also fun. I see some opportunity to put some crazier shapes on here, maybe some tentacles. I have no idea what this is, man. I want to have a face turned around and coming at us. Maybe I should. Okay, let's do that. You guys are going to witness this in real time. I didn't plan this. I'm going to attempt to have this weird head maybe wrap around here. So it's going to come up. Okay. I have some, well, not some. I'm going to be starting live sessions. Okay. Now, I did premieres for the past couple months, and those were fun. But the premieres were just pre-recorded videos with live chat. I'm actually going to have live videos. We're going to be drawing on the fly, probably taking in information and suggestions from you guys, whoever's going to watch it. And I'm going to draw weird stuff. I'm going to do stuff like this. Okay. Oh boy. I don't know what this is. That's the fun part though. Okay. Let me put in a little bit of value here so you at least know where the body is. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm adding some value, and obviously it's going to look different physically in real life than it is for you on a screen, but this will help indicate where it is so now you can see it. Okay, I'm probably only going to do like maybe 3 passes. I don't want to do any more yet. All right. There we go. Okay. All right. So now we got it. All right. The face. Now, when we look at something that is truly grotesque and worm-like and slug-like, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe a strange opening in the mouth here. I don't really want to do anything that is well known. Okay, I could put some eyes. You know what? I think I will put an eye. I'm going to put a very, very scary jet black eye here, and a very scary eye there, and maybe a smaller one there and a smaller one there. Okay, so inside here is going to be thousands or hundreds, I don't know how many, of teeth. And what the teeth are going to be doing is they're all going to be pointing inwards, similar to the inside of a snapping turtle's mouth. Those of you that are familiar with a snapping turtle and the inside of their mouth, it is truly one of the most terrifying things you will ever see. Google that right now. Pause my video, Google inside of an alligator snapping turtle's mouth. There's so many teeth and they're all pointing inwards, so whatever it swallows, it will not be able to escape. It is terrifying. But anyway, wouldn't that be cool to put that on a creature? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so I'm going to shade a little bit inside here just to show you where this crazy Y-shaped mouth is. I have it go down like this. I'm going to add some structure to the face. There we go, and maybe like a flatter head. So now you can see the worm looking at us, if you want to call it a worm, I guess. Yeah, there we go. So here's some eye socket protrusions. All right. Notice how I have not used my eraser and I have not sharpened my pencil yet. I do need to sharpen my pencil. Okay. All right. Let's add some value on that actual face. Now, when I start to put more details on this creature, I do want more detail on the face than any other spot. Why? Because that's my selling point. All right. Each concept that you come up with, whether it's for yourself, whether it's a personal portfolio piece, or your portfolio in general in order to get hired by a studio, your concepts have to have purpose and they also have to have a selling point. Why are people looking at it? Anybody can just draw a creature. Okay, but if your creature has meaning behind it, okay, if it's going to kill somebody, why and how is it going to kill somebody? What is it going to kill somebody with? Big teeth, big spikes, big claws, acid? Who knows? Okay. So now that we have that, I'm assuming that this worm is probably poisonous. It has to bite you somehow. So I'm not going to draw the entire mouth open. That's up for interpretation. So I'm just going to pretend that this is the beginning stages of concepting. Now, as far as explaining what chaos is all about, notice how the legs down here are more centipede, spider-like, and the legs up here are kind of hanging, almost like they were meant to grow where they're spotted, but they didn't grow correctly. So this is the chaos that I'm talking about. It's unpredictable and fun. Okay, so think about being a concept artist for a second. One of the coolest things about being a concept artist is think about the title, concept. Okay, you are inventing something, hopefully, that nobody has seen before, and if they have seen it, a very, very different take on it so it's not boring. All right, now there are thousands upon thousands of worm-like creatures in movies and in video games, short films, you name it. Okay, so if you see a cool concept, most likely somebody else has drawn it already. It's up to you to figure out how are you going to make it your own? How are you going to make it different enough to where it looks like it belongs in the world that you're creating? Okay, and to eliminate any fear of actually having to do that, it all starts with getting a good foundation in first. Because think about all the times that you have started a drawing, and instead of the actual concept being awesome, you were worried about applying the actual lines. You were too worried about, oh my gosh, my shading is going to suck, my cylinder, my cones, my spheres, my cubes are going to suck. And here you are tasked with coming up with a weapon for a new transformer. It's just like these kinds of practices, starting with cylinders, cones, spheres, and cubes, that's going to become second nature if you keep it up. All right. So those of you that are new to my channel, thanks again for coming to my channel. I do hope that you find my other videos helpful. There is a planned foundational drawing playlist that I will be including on my channel late spring. I mentioned this, I believe, back in February on a public post. Okay, I will be putting that in there at some point. And there's also going to be several digital products that I'll have available soon. Okay, it takes a lot to plan these things, but it's going to be foundational drawing practices and principles. Okay, I'm going to go over everything from how to draw straight lines, how to draw circles, how to draw all the fundamentally sound things that you need to know in order to become a better artist. Okay. So notice here that I started to put more detail in on the face. Okay, it's like a happy mutated caterpillar looking at us. And I do ask that each time that I create a creature, those of you watching, I would love to hear your name for it. I don't remember what I named my last creature. What does this look like? Does it look like a Larry? Does it look like a Samantha? I don't know. Like a Helga, a Gertrude, a Jim? I don't know. Put it in the comments. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. So now I tilted the sketchbook just a little bit, and to give a reason why I do that, every single person that draws on this planet has a specific position that they hold their body in, their shoulders, their arms, and their pencils in their hands in order to create the best lines possible. Now me, because each one of us is built differently. The way we tilt our hands, the way we tilt our bodies, it's going to be different. My arm produces the best lines for me at specific angles. So instead of turning your arm uncomfortably in order to draw well, turn the sketchbook. You can draw an entire thing the same exact angle mechanically with your hand and turn your sketchbook all kinds of different ways and still produce the best thing. All right? Best thing possible, I should say. Always remember that. Okay, so now we got a pretty good outline. I'm going to start to scribble. Yes, scribble. This is another thing that I'm giving you guys permission to do. So please scribble. Okay? I don't have authority over anything. So when I tell you I'm giving you permission, I'm not the Lord over anything, okay? But what I do have is years of experience and knowing that we tend to overanalyze as artists every single marking that we put down on the paper. I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty. I mean, I can't tell you how many sketchbooks over the years, especially when I was a young lad and a teenager, and even in my early 20s, where I would get a sketchbook, pretty expensive, and I would put one marking down on it that didn't start well. I got in my head, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to use an eraser yet, and then I start using an eraser. And then I start erasing away the material, the coating of the top of the page. And then when I try to draw over that spot that was erased, the shading didn't look as good as the smooth parts on either side of that eraser mark, which is one of the reasons why I encourage you guys not to erase as much. Only erase when you have to. But I would just start these sketchbooks off with little things. So imagine you saw only a claw, okay? And the rest of the page is perfectly white, beautiful. And you didn't draw anything, you just turned the page because it didn't start off well. That would happen to me because I would get inside my own head because the first thing that I put down wasn't perfect, and then I would be like, you know what, I'm not going to screw up the next one. And guess what? I screwed up the next one because I did not allow myself to scribble, draw loosely, embrace the gesture part of art. And you learn this, you're going to mature. Those of you watching right now that have attended figure drawing classes, amazing, amazing. I encourage everybody to attend figure drawing classes, whether it's locally, whether you are already at a school. You learn so much because not only are you sketching organically, you are literally sketching the most difficult thing to draw on the entire planet, and that is a human being. It is. Because, listen, a lot of people say it's cars. Cars is probably the hardest thing you're ever going to draw. But when it comes to free thinking and shapes and gestures and movement, posing, weight distribution, expression, personality, human beings are hard. Now, what does that have to do with the creature I'm drawing? It's because those of you that want to be a character artist and those of you that want to be a creature artist, they actually go hand in hand. The better you get at one of them, you are actually practicing the other. Because think about Star Trek, think about Star Wars, think about all of those games and movies you've seen where you see a humanoid, you see a creature that could also be a human. Think about the cryptids out there. Think about Slender Man, you got Sasquatch, you have werewolves, Wendigos, things that kind of look human, and they have human-esque qualities, but they're not human. Okay, especially the Wendigo, man, it's terrifying. All right, so you can start to see. The other beautiful thing about gestural sketching is that when you start to apply all of these loose lines over top of each other, and if you have patience, which I encourage you to practice, patience does take practice. If you start to build all of these layers up, you actually form a lot of detail in there. Everything in this neck right now, with all these wrinkles and everything, it's expressive. Okay? There are thousands upon thousands of people that are going to view this video. Every single one of you, you're going to pick up different details in this neck than the other person. Okay, this is one of the things that I learned back in school when I was in industrial design. And that is, the beauty of thumbnails is, I mean, you can't match it anywhere. And that is, if you hang up, like physically hang up a printed out page, or just rip out a sheet of your sketchbook, hang it on the wall of your thumbnails, and you have a group of people looking at it, each person they're going to see something different within the thumbnails. That's the beauty of interpretation. This is why gestural sketching is so important, especially with concept art, and even more so with human anatomy drawings. Okay, because once you get better at the muscles, the organic shapes, you're actually going to get better with creatures, because it's the same thing. And the better you get with existing forms like animals, which I encourage you to draw too, the better you get with animals and the better you get with humans, guess what? You have that visual library stored in your brain so that you can draw things like this on the fly. I'm not looking at anything. If I were to move this camera around and go around my office, I'm not looking at anything. I'm just pulling from years and years and years of obsessing about rated R horror films and other concept art and stuff that I've done for games and movies. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm really glad that I obsessed about insects when I was 8 years old while other children were playing with RC cars. I was climbing trees too. My mom always said if she would call me in for dinner, me and my sister, that if I was not on the ground when she looked outside of the window, she wasn't afraid. She would just look up in a tree. And I was in the tree. And then she would tell me it was dinner time. It was kind of funny. All right, there we go. Okay, so more details are going to be added here on the body. I've put in some shading. I don't really need to indicate much of it. All right, I'm going to turn this a little bit. And this is the power of showing still where the gestural sketching lies in a sketch without putting too much thought process into areas where you don't actually need to think hard. So like down here, towards those spidery legs, I don't really care about those legs, and I'm telling you not to care about them also. Because notice how the head is the darkest, okay? This part up here that has the most personality, the most feeling that you get from the creature, okay? It's the face. I know that, you know, the cliche, and I'm going to say this every time, the cliche about eyes are the window to the soul. It doesn't matter how heartless, merciless, or evil the eyes are. That is true. This creature has no eyelids. It has no thought, probably, other than give me food, I'm going to kill you. As a matter of fact, now that I'm drawing this, it kind of reminds me of the squid-like creatures in Peter Jackson's Kong movie. You know, like personally for me, my favorite sequence has nothing to do with King Kong. It's that trench that they all fall into with all those bugs and slugs and arachnids that live down there. That's a terrifying scene. It's really, really good. But there are these slug creatures down there that just ate the chef whole, Andy Serkis. It's funny. Yeah, I laughed. All right, so now another cool trick, if you want to make some parts of the skin jump out at you on the page, is when everything has this light to medium tone to it with all these built up values and lines and everything, you put really dark marks on there to indicate some maybe imperfections and bumps in the skin, like this, and then going down the neck. And again, me as an artist, I'm selling the head only. So I'm showing you that these things exist on the head, and then I'm telling you what direction to take your eye down the body to indicate, hey, there's more of those things that are growing off of this creature's body, but I don't need to draw every single one. And I think this is a trap that a lot of artists get into, is that if you draw some details on one part of the body, you have to draw it on every part. And that's totally not the case when giving an idea and making it successful. Because if I have a bunch of tiny little imperfections in the skin and scales and bumps and hair and fur and all that kind of stuff on the face, pretty much that's going to exist on the body too. So you can take this as information, put it into your imagination, let your imagination run wild, and then travel down the body. Okay? Think about books you read. All right? Like everybody is going to interpret a book differently. Whether it's a horror, mystery, sci-fi, doesn't matter. Okay? We all have these visions in our head of what the characters look like, the creatures, the settings. This is why, and I hate to say this, but this is why a lot of the books tend to be better than the movies. It's because the movie was just one director's vision of what the book was or supposed to look like. Sometimes it's amazing, other times it's not so amazing. Anyway, that's a pet peeve of mine, and I'm not going to get into that. Maybe for a later discussion. All right. Look at this. Like it came from a cylinder. So hopefully, I mean, I would love to see what all of you are drawing right now. Let's put a little chaos in here. Let's put some tentacles coming out. Maybe there's some strange slithering tentacles that are growing off of the head, which is another really good camouflage this creature could have. Maybe it just sits in the foliage of a jungle or a forest and it just kind of waits for you. Put some little dots on each tentacle, kind of like maybe tiny little suckers or spikes, something like that. Okay. The other thing is I'll probably make this part of the body darker, just to show you what's in the foreground versus what's pushed back. You know, even though I'm not going all out into detail, there is still atmospheric perspective that is happening within the sketch. Okay, now notice, 1, I didn't use an eraser at all. 2, you have barely seen my hand as I've drawn this, and that's because I keep my hand off of my sketch. I get asked hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times, how do I keep my drawing so clean? And it's 1, I don't erase. 2, I keep my hands away from it. Like, if you erase and then you need to brush it away, what are you doing? You're brushing over the graphite. You're smearing everything. 2, when you place your hand on top of the sketch, unless you're going to hold it completely still and just put in some details, the oils in your skin are smearing it. Now, over time, when you close your sketchbook, open it, close it, especially you have a sketchbook for years, yes, the pages that are touching that drawing are eventually going to smear that graphite, which is why I use this. Okay, so let me sharpen my Prismacolor. Oh, you know what? This is not Prismacolor. I grabbed the wrong pencil. Hold on just a second. Okay, this is my Prismacolor. I'm going to sharpen this. All right. The wax inside of a Prismacolor sits on top of the graphite. Okay, you want to treat it as an equal. Okay, so however gently you shaded and marked up your page with graphite, you want to do the same with a Prismacolor. And that is because the wax helps keep the graphite down. It helps keep it from smearing. Now, it does not have the power of fixative or some kind of spray mount, but it does preserve a lot of the marks in there. Okay, so and on top of that, it adds a texture that graphite does not have, and it's really cool. I can't explain it, you just have to see it. But watch the power of black Prismacolor. So when I have a graphite pencil, even if it's 6B, something that gets super dark, okay, it can only go so dark. If I want something that's almost black, let's say I'm doing an insect and it's the pincers or some kind of tentacle or a toenail or an eyeball, all right, all I got to do is just take that Prismacolor and look how dark that got. Okay, so the same thing can be said about that side. And then maybe parts of the inside of the mouth right here where there is no light source going into the hole and eventually down the throat. And then here in the eyeball, I'm going to push pretty hard, maybe on the main eyes. You got to be careful though about black Prismacolor, because once this is down, there is no turning back. Especially if you have really nice, beautiful shading with a pencil, and then you shade on top of that graphite with black Prismacolor to help add texture. You can't take an eraser if you have to use it and erase that. It's down, so just be careful. Okay, so I'm being very careful and selective on how I apply this. And those of you that are new to this technique, maybe you've never heard of this before, the black Prismacolor, you're going to see the awesome texture that it provides. The black Prismacolor sits differently on the paper than graphite does. Graphite is smoother, black Prismacolor is thicker, and it's a little rougher just because it's wax-based. So you want to make sure that with the graphite, you already establish where the shadows are going to be so that you can just lightly color over them. Now, with areas like this that are more in open, that hasn't really been touched by a pencil, here's what you can do. You can put multiple passes with the graphite across this area. Maybe even 5, 6, 7 passes, something like that's really smooth. And then once you're happy with 5, 6, or 7 different passes, I'm just throwing a number out there, it's pretty smooth. Then you take a sharpened black Prismacolor and you do the same thing. Then you put it across here, and you'll notice that the wax, this whole texture that happens, is a lot rougher. So the wax does not fill each individual groove of no matter what paper you're using as much as graphite does, no matter how hard you sharpen it. Okay, so what you have to do now is you have to treat this gently. Okay, turn the sketchbook and apply that pressure that you did with the graphite with the Prismacolor, so that you have a nice smooth coating with the black Prismacolor also. And then here's where the beautiful thing happens. Let's say you do 5 or 6 different passes with the graphite, then you take the black Prismacolor and you do the same thing. You take the pencil again and you go back over the Prismacolor. And then you're going to start to see magic really happening, because what this does is it fills in all of those tiny little gaps that the wax had. So now you have something really smooth happening. But again, seeing this on camera and seeing this physically in real life is night and day. Okay, so you're going to have to practice this when when you're sketching or when you're doing something for an assignment. You're going to start to see just beautiful results when you start to keep your hand loose, sketch gesturally, okay, and then build, build, build. You can always get darker. You can never, ever get lighter. Do not rely on an eraser to get lighter, because it will screw up your drawing. All right? Yes, you can use an eraser if you have to. I have to sometimes, because I just put something down that is just not agreeing with what I intended. Then I will erase. All right? All right. Thank you for paying attention to me while I draw this grotesque worm. I don't know what to name it, but I would love to hear your suggestions. So just comment below, name this thing. Be sure to check out my tutorials on drawing creatures from a cube and drawing creatures from a sphere. Okay, and those will be linked here at the end of the video. Thanks again. I'll see y'all next time. Later.